Hello class, in this video we are going to go over the Unit 1 Part 2 review. So this graph here on the right indicates the results of a survey in which a random sample of adults in a certain country was asked if a certain action was morally wrong in general. And we want to know approximately, since we don't have the data to know exactly, what percent of the respondents believe the action is morally acceptable, rounded to the nearest whole number as needed. So in order for us to do this, we, based on our graph here, see that this bar is slightly above 70. So a good estimate for what that could be, let's say it's pretty close to 72. So interpretation about that would be about 72% of the respondents. Believe the action is morally acceptable. As long as your answer is roughly in that ballpark, it should be fine for that. For the next one, if there are 300 million adults in the country, how many believe the action is morally wrong? Rounded to the nearest million as needed. So based on this, it's directly on this line for 20%. So we're going to estimate this as about 20%. So if there's 300 million adults in the country, there should be that 20.20 times 300 million. Or to express that then, this will make 60 million. So interpretation of this is about 60 million people. 60 million adults specifically believe that the action is morally wrong. In this case. And then the last one, this would be if a polling organization claimed that the results of the survey indicate that 7% of adults in the country believe that the action is acceptable in certain situations, would you say this statement is descriptive or inferential, and why? Well, if we look at this, right, this 10% would be about right here. It's less than that. Could it be the 7%? Certainly could be. But it should be noted that this particular question makes absolutely no indication that this is asking about the responses on the survey. It's saying 7% of just adults in the country, not adults in the sample, adults in the country. So because of that, the statement is inferential. Because it makes a prediction. Again, it is not descriptive because even though the graph looks to be about 7%, this statement is not mentioning the respondents of the survey. For the second question, we have in a poll some random sample of 2,163 adults aged 18 and over was asked, when you see an ad emphasizing that a product is made in your country, are you more likely to buy it, less likely to buy it, or neither more nor less likely to buy it? The results are indicated in this graph, which I know the way the text is above these numbers, some of them are kind of hard to read, especially if it's not zoomed in upon. But the results are indicated in the graph. We want to know what proportion of 18 to 34-year-old respondents are more likely to buy when made in their country. So that'll be this blue bar here. This should just be, since we want the proportion, 0.61 according to this graph. This second one wants, what is the apparent association between age and likelihood to buy when made in their country? And then we could see, right, the more likely right here starts decreasing as the age increases, while the less likely starts to increase the age point. The neither, I mean, it does change a little bit, but not by that much that we need to be concerned about it. But we could definitely see a big difference of the more likely and the less likely. So to quantify that using words, this would be as age decreases, likelihood to buy homegrown increases. Right, the opposite of what we just said, that as the age is increasing, the likelihood to buy homegrown decreases. This is the same thing. As the age decreases, likelihood to buy homegrown would increase. Again, as we could see from the graph. Right, as this age are decreasing, the blue bar is increasing. And then the last one, why can the researchers not claim causation? Well, that's because this is just a question as part of a questionnaire. It's just an observational study. Nothing was done to the respondents. So because of that, it is an observational study. This is just part 1 of this review guide, and I will see you again in the part 2 for this unit 1, part 2 review guide. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.